Joining us at the intersection of both of these important stories is Kristen Ruby, president of the New York-based Ruby Media Group. Chris, when the CEOs of Apple and Amazon and Facebook and Google's parent company Alphabet appeared before a House Judiciary subcommittee weighing antitrust issues, they got an earful from both sides of the aisle. Here is Chairman David Cicilline, a Democrat from here in Rhode Island.
As gatekeepers of the digital economy, these platforms enjoy the power to pick winners and losers, to shake down small businesses, and enrich themselves while choking off competitors. Their ability to dictate terms, call the shots, upend entire sectors, and inspire fear represent the powers of a private government. Our founders would not bow before a king, nor should we bow before the emperors of the online economy.
The president and many conservative politicians grouse that social media skews left. Kristen, fair charge or bum rap?
Yeah, so I think that is a fair charge, and we've seen that numerous times, whether it's shadow banning or people on the right that have been sort of unfairly temporarily blocked from their platform. But I don't think it's really, I don't think the question or the big picture here is, are they censoring the right versus the left? I think the larger question is, are they censoring free speech in general? And we're seeing that with doctors being temporarily removed from their platform, or specifically on Twitter, with Facebook and issues around political advertising, with Google and their issues as well. And if we review the Google Quality Rater Guidelines, which is a 160-page document that Google publicly puts out, which basically tells their quality raters, this is the criteria you should look at for what is essentially something that should be dinged as not true and what is real news. And the problem is that anyone who controls the algorithm is going to have a certain level of internal bias, whether they realize it or not. Most people have that subconsciously. And so whoever controls the algorithm controls the news and controls the speech. That's really the challenge that we're faced with today.
Yeah, they hang it on the algorithm, but you speak volumes when you talk about controlling the algorithm. And we hear this most in terms of politics. Much of my work in talk radio has been political arm wrestling and anger that seems recreational. Much of the work your firm does is in the healthcare industry. Are doctors sensitive and suffering the same kind of to use the term, censorship that the politicians are complaining about?
Doctors are absolutely under attack right now. They are being watched in a much more stringent way than ever before. They are specifically, the algorithms are specifically looking out for doctors who are tweeting about or posting on social media about supplement usage, about any perceived diagnosis or treatment plan for COVID-19. If you're tweeting about any drugs, we've seen doctors on Twitter this week get temporarily banned for posting about this drug usage. So I think it's very important for doctors to be specifically very careful about what they are posting and to understand that they are more likely to have their social media temporarily banned if they cross the line. And again, that line is the line that continues to move. It's a moving target.
Yeah, I get the impression that one of the ways docs cross that line is by recommending hydroxychloroquine. Is that true?
That is absolutely correct. And so right now, any doctors that are posting about hydroxychloroquine, if you have a large following on Twitter or Facebook, those posts are actually going to be flagged by their fact checkers as saying that this is most likely not valid, and they will mark that off to say this is not a trusted source. So I think doctors need to understand that these platforms are very concerned right now. There is a lot of pressure on them that the big tech in general is receiving from government, as we have seen with the antitrust hearing, to be more on top of what is being put out regarding COVID-19. Now, on the one hand, I'd like to say that they are concerned about being sued if someone takes hydroxychloroquine and they, for example, die as a result of that. I would love to say that they're worried about being sued. However, they still can't be sued for that because of Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act and the legal liability protection that is afforded to big tech from that. So the big question in my mind, the million-dollar question is still I'm waiting to see happen from the antitrust hearing and the role of big tech and censorship in social media platforms is, will Section 230 be amended? And if so, will social media platforms no longer have that protection that's once afforded to them?
Yeah, the razor's edge between publisher and platform. I got to think that all of this unleveling of the playing field is what's driving adoption of the new platform Parlor. And I am not there. I believe you are. And what's the deal? Anything goes there? There is zero censorship?
Yeah, I haven't seen anything censored on that. I know there's another conservative social media platform that I just joined called Gab as well. So what's interesting to me is that these new social media platforms on the right continue to keep popping up. And basically what they feel like is, you know, a dinner party that you're invited to with people that share your belief system, where you're not being censored as much. And I think that is the appeal and the draw to people leaving some of these other platforms. And what's fascinating to me is you have people that said, I will never leave Twitter, my base is here, and now they actually are, because they are saying the censorship is out of control on Twitter and these other platforms, and it's time to leave.
We are speaking with Kristin Ruby of Ruby Media Group from New York. And during our conversation, Chris, we have your website address showing on the screen from time to time. And if messaging is your work, you should visit and read the blog at rubymediagroup.com. Chris has posted the video of an hour-long webinar that she did on what's being called brand activism, change wave triggered by the George Floyd killing. After resisting for years, the Washington football team will now play a season named the Washington football team until they can settle on a nickname less offensive than the Redskins. And Chris, I spotted your recent tweet that made this wave of package changing seem superficial. You tweeted, the brand execs at Aunt Jemima care more about brand activism than they do about diabetes. What does that tell you about their priorities? What do you think leads to more deaths in this country? Aunt Jemima logo or the ingredients and high sugar content in their product? Chris, so that we don't lapse into lingo, give our viewers a definition of brand activism and the cancel culture that hath wrought it. Is this just a politically correct fad, or have standards changed?
So standards definitely have changed, and we're seeing that consumers are voting with their dollars now for brands that really are taking a stand one way or the other. Brands that are remaining neutral seem to be losing in this battle of cancel culture and everything else. But so the definition of cancel culture is the act of canceling out a brand, product, or public figure that you disagree with because of political beliefs or social justice stance. And brand activism is the act of, you know, using social justice as your voice as a brand on social media marketing platforms, in advertising, and through your public relations and marketing campaigns to use your voice for what is perceived as the greater good. Now, how do you really determine or define what the greater good is? Everyone's going to have a different definition of that. But what I think is most interesting here, when we look at the Aunt Jemima example, they came under fire for their name. And so I suppose they're changing their name and possibly the logo. But what my point was here is that a product reformulation is true brand change. It is not just changing your name. And I think that is one of the areas where people are just missing across the board. Is that if you truly care about your customers, if you care about their health, if you care about the diabetes epidemic in this country, if you look at COVID-19 and the healthcare disparities that have been reported of healthcare treatment and the numbers of certain populations or minorities that have gotten or been diagnosed with COVID-19 at astronomical rates, then what that means is not just changing your logo, but changing the sugar content that leads to issues like diabetes, that also lead to a specific group of people getting sick at higher rates. You should care about that. That is true branding, in my opinion. True branding is actually caring about the people you serve and not just pretending to care with a new logo. In my opinion, that is from the counsel of a PR firm rather than actually someone understanding who their customer base is and creating real change. And what that is called is hashtag activism or slacktivism, which is not real activism. It's social media activism that ultimately leads nowhere.
Yep. Window dressing. Very thoughtful take. Kristin Ruby, Ruby Media Group, New York. Thanks as always for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you,
Happy
Helen.
birthday, Uncle Sam.